Today on MH News, we're going behind the scenes of 28 interviews in one day. Welcome to MH News, everybody. I'm your host, Matt Haslam. Now, for the past month, we've been on location for a total of 20 days for a production called Our Town Orsburg documentary. Now, this is a documentary by PBS, and it's coming out in June of this year. And we've been on location for 20 days now, just shooting everything. And so I think we've given them 10 hours of footage so far, plus all the footage from this day that we're going to be talking about. So it's a ton of footage that they have to edit through and make a 2-hour long show. So and basically what this show is it's called Our Town. And what they do is they highlight one small town somewhere in Pennsylvania for 2 hours. And they highlight the arts, the entertainment, the culture, the people, the storefronts, the history, and the future of this town. Everything that makes this town great. And it's a beautiful project to be a part of, and just everything about this project makes me excited because it really highlights the good in a small town. So basically what they do with this is they have one day that's scheduled as an interview day, and they have 28 interviews in this one day, which is insane. It's a very long day. It's 12 hours of actual shooting, and it's about a 17-hour day for the crew. It's insanely difficult to do as a crew member, but it was insanely fun as well. I mean, basically, if you have fun doing what you do and you have a lightheartedness about your crew, it's not work. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I had from this whole experience. But I got on location about 6:30 in the morning, and basically we had planned to use a gymnasium for about a month. And everything was lined up for about a month long, and the producer and the DP and another cameraman and I all showed up and just walked into the room and said, this won't work, because the lights in the gymnasium were buzzing really bad, and we don't use backdrops for this type of a production. So the backdrop that we were going to use was the actual building, and the building inside was under construction, and so we basically said we can't use this. And so we had called out the Historical Society, and unfortunately the woman who runs that, her father was really sick that day, and so things didn't work out there. And so we ended up at the funeral home in town, the only funeral home in town, which was kind of really creepy for the day. We were really hoping there wasn't a funeral that day, because it was on a Saturday and it was really early in the morning. So we're really hoping nothing's happening at the funeral home. So we go over, and luckily they let us in, and they let us shoot there the entire day. And we were about 45 minutes late in starting to set up because of all the delays and stuff like that. And basically we were just starting to set up when the interviews were supposed to start. And so people were waiting in the foyer area, but luckily they were patient with us. And this is my first day on set with this specific crew from PBS. So it was a big learning curve for me to learn not only the equipment, but to work with this specific crew. And I think a big takeaway from this whole day was, as soon as we walked in, the DP went on set. His name was Drew, by the way, and he's the editor as well for this project. And he went in, he knew exactly what he wanted, but he opened up the floor to both Ron, the other cameraman, and myself, and said, if you guys have any suggestions, please tell me. And I think that's a big takeaway, because as a DP, you can easily walk in and say, hey, I have final say, but really what makes a great DP is listening to the cameraman and listening to other people and saying, you know what, we're all here to make this project look fantastic, and opening up to collaboration is a perfect way to not only make your crew happy, but make the production brilliant in the end, because you realize, if I do it my way, it's going to be good. If we collaborate and everybody has a little say in how it's done, then we can take all of our great ideas. 2 heads are better than 1, and it's going to look really great. Well, see, that's casting too much a shadow on the chair. So I think that was definitely a big takeaway from this, is how to be a director, how to be a DP. And So basically what we did was we set up the first set of the day, and basically it was right in the morning, so the sun was shining right through the windows, and we were using a bunch of lights from ARRI, a crap load of 650 watt lights and 350 watt lights. We were drawing so much power. Over the course of the entire day, we blew the fuse to the entire building about 5 times.
That's a breaker.
So that was kind of interesting, just to keep running back to the circuit breaker. And I think when you have a location scouted out, you should know where the circuit breaker is right away, label what outlets are where, and of course you're not always going to have the time to do that. And one of the things I learned from this production was this crew never has the time to do that. But that's definitely something that you should do when you get on location, is just figure out everything's wired right. That way you're not plugging into a bad plug. So definitely take a little electrical tester with you, because it's going to help so much, just to make sure everything's going to be good for your equipment. But as soon as we got done setting up all the lights, we figured out the sun was shining through the window and it was affecting our Kelvin temperature. So we were adjusting for a certain light temperature with the lights, and the sunlight was coming through, giving us another Kelvin temperature. And so what we did was we put a gel, an ND gel, over the entire window, which that was kind of funky to do with gaff tape, outside of the building. And keep in mind, right in front of this building is a very busy road, and so everybody driving by is seeing this huge ND gel on the window. And then about an hour later, the sun rose a little bit more, and so it was shining again right into it, and we ended up having to put a flag on it. And what that is basically a big poster board that blocks the sun from a certain area, or light from a certain area. And we held it up with a bunch of C-stands outside and a bunch of sandbags, and so all these people that are driving by are wondering what the heck is happening in that funeral home today. So that was kind of fun to do. That was probably the funnest part about the whole day, is just doing something very out of the ordinary that nobody knows what's going on. But on the inside, we had a crap load of 650 watt lights and 350 watt lights from ARRI, and a bunch of other lights that just happened to be in the truck extra. But one of the things from the lighting aspect that I learned was, rather than blinding your interviewee, normally I use a bunch of soft boxes, but rather than blinding them with a big huge light right on them with maybe some diffusion paper on it, one of the things I learned was putting the light behind the interviewee and directing it down towards a poster board on a C-stand, which is what we actually did that day. And it's the first time I ever worked with C-stands, by the way. That was so fun. They are incredibly useful, and I cannot wait until I can afford to get some on my own. But we bounced it down to a poster board on a C-stand back into their face, and that way it gives a little bit of a fill, but it's not blinding them. And we had a softbox over here to be our key light, and that was really interesting to find out how to do things without a bunch of softboxes, because you're not always going to have a bunch of softboxes on set. And the lighting was just perfect for both of our cameras. We had a Canon XL-H1, which was recording directly into the camera with audio as well, into little tapes. It was recording with an Atomos Samurai Blade external monitor and recorder. First time I ever worked with the Atomos system, by the way, and they are fantastic, I have to say. I cannot wait until we have the budget to afford one, but again, that's out of our realm right now. But that was recording audio. The Atomos was recording audio and video. Then on the main camera, that was doing the Canon was doing a medium shot on the interviewee, by the way. And then camera right behind that, staggered, was a GH2 with a cinema lens on it, and that was recording on an SD card internally, and then it was recording on its own Atomos Samurai Blade audio and video. And then they had a Tascam audio recorder to record all the audio, and then we recorded from another angle with a Canon T5i. All day long we're using a GoPro for a time-lapse, and we have another Panasonic camera recording sometimes. So they had overall, I think, 5 copies of most of the interviews for video and then 4 copies of the audio. I don't think they're going to run out of footage for this, plus the 10 hours of footage they already had from around town. So the editing on this project is going to be massive, and I feel really bad for the editor, Drew, to try to go through everything and find the best. And that, to me, shocked me how much footage and how many backups were created of that footage. But we're going to leave notes in the description below of all the different cameras and stuff like that that were used that day. It was really interesting to work with all this really professional gear that basically is different from my gear. And it's always an experience not to just learn on different equipment and learn on waveforms and stuff like that, and learn RGB levels and all that kind of stuff, and Rec 709 to get it ready for broadcast. I think beyond the whole learning experience with the gear, it was really great to work with the people and to learn, how to direct and learn how to be an interviewer. Because Lisa, our producer, was the interviewer for the day, and for 12 hours she was interviewing people, and I would get really tired after maybe 2 or 3 hours, and I'd call it a day. But she sat there and she interviewed everybody so beautifully, and I'm not surprised that she's a public speaking expert, and she teaches a class in public speaking at 2 different universities, and she has her own radio show. I'm not surprised a bit, because she words everything so beautifully and elegantly. But she brought people in and calmed them down.
Now, Chuck, when we're talking, don't look I know you're going to be tempted to look over there. Look right at me. Right here. Watching you, man. Watching you. Okay.
And with 5 cameras on you and all these lights around you, it's very intimidating. So a lot of the people were coming in and they were nervous. And they were obviously nervous to the point of almost crying. And so Lisa had this way of calming them down and saying, don't worry about these cameras behind me. Just talk to me as if you're talking to a friend at dinner or something like that. And not only did she say things beautifully like that, but she had this way of calming them down just with her own voice and not having to say every single time, don't worry. Her voice did it for her, and her tone did that for her. And I think that was great. And to say to all the interviewees, don't worry about if you make a mistake. We can always go back. The editors are wonderful on this, so it doesn't matter. If you need to look at your notes, go look at your notes and then come back to the interview, And that, to me, was a big learning experience, to learn how to conduct a great interview. But at the end of every interview, we had them do a promo for the show, and that was kind of cool to hold up a script every single time. We're gonna look towards that camera back there.
Well, here, just do this part down here. Tune in Thursday for our time. Just give me the details.
Tune in Thursday, June 4th.
What? Tell us who you are.
Oh, okay. No,
First line, then tune in.
Hi, my name is Joe Mustishin. Tune in Thursday, June 4th at 8 p.m. for Our Town Ordsburg on WVIA TV.
And, for me, I was a cameraman on the 3rd camera of the day, which is the Canon T5i, getting a side profile of everybody. So, it wasn't, I know my camera angle isn't going to be chosen most of the time, because they're mostly going to choose the GH2, which was kind of shocking to find out that they were using sort of DSLR for their main camera. But for me, it was mostly, I knew my camera angle's going to be the 3rd in the line that's chosen. It's probably not going to be chosen too often for the show, but it was really interesting to just be on set, and it didn't matter if I was just a production assistant doing the clapboard. It was so much of a learning experience for me that it was well worth the 17 hours in the day to take out of my day and to give to the project, because it was such a learning experience for me that, really, even if I was just doing clapboard and not the camera, it would have been worth it. And one thing I learned really fast during a set change is lights can be very hot, because we were moving a chair and a light fell over and smashed on my arm here, and that's always fun to have on your arm for the rest of the week. Don't know if you guys can see that, but it's quite bad. But that was fun to get burned by a light, and it was only on my arm for like a split second, but it really, really hurt. But then it fell over and smashed. But I didn't feel that bad, because another light fell over and smashed as well near the end of the day. But anyway, you have to be careful with this equipment, and it's been so long. I mean, I've worked with big lights before, but it's been a while since I worked with that hot of light. Normally we work with CFL bulbs that don't get really, really hot, like the halogens that they had on set that day. So it's been a while since I worked with those. So definitely learned really fast. Oh, by the way, they're hot. And you learn from doing, I think. And that's the best part about doing this, because you learn every single day. And I keep on saying, nobody knows everything about anything. And that's true in every industry. You know, you can walk on and say you're a director, you can walk on and think you're all that, but at the end of the day, everybody has great ideas. And so if you can take those ideas and run with them, you're going to have a great production. During the day, I think the most valuable part of the day wasn't actually the shooting. During lunch, I was quite impressed. The producer invited me along with the rest of the crew to lunch. And basically, you know, this crew works together all the time. And my first day on set with this specific crew, and so basically it really impressed me that the producer invited me to lunch with everybody and then dinner with everyone. And over lunch we talked about personal lives and stuff like that and what we do outside of this. Very interesting enough, one of the cameramen, Ron, actually lives about 10 miles away from where I do, and so it was really interesting to find that out, because really that's a great networking thing. It's great to be able to say now that, you know, I have another guy who I know I can trust behind a camera, and if I need somebody one day, I can have him come in. If he needs somebody, he can have me come in. And so it's really great to see somebody that really knows their stuff with cameras and stuff like that, and to know that they're only a few miles away. So it's really great to network. And we learned about each other's personal lives and became really good friends over lunch. And then dinner, we really got into the gear and talked tech, and we compared editing programs, and that to me was really cool, because we were, you know, really sharing experiences, different pieces of gear. And then finally we got into, basically I picked their brain at, you know, how they got started, and they both have really good jobs now. And so I basically asked them, you know, how did you get this job that you have, and where did you start out at, and can you give me any advice? And luckily enough, you know, all day long they're teaching me all this gear. And of course some of the things I already knew beforehand. You know, they're telling me about 180-degree roll and, you know, 3-point lighting system and stuff like that, and all that kind of stuff. You know, yes, I've done that many years now, so I kind of know it. But one thing is to not go on set and be arrogant about it. And so I already know that. No, because then the next thing that they might want to speak up and teach you about might be something that you don't know. So it's always a good thing to be appreciative of every single thing that they try to teach you. Remember, you're on set, and so everything's hectic all the time. You have so much going on, and so if they're willing to take the minute out of their day to teach me one little thing, I'm gonna soak that in like a sponge, and I'm just gonna run with it, because that's something maybe I will never use that piece of advice, but maybe I will. And so that was the great part about it. Always be appreciative. And, you know, after dinner and picking their brain a lot and becoming good friends with them, you know, it was really a great day overall. And I think the networking was one thing. Learning about the gear was a fantastic thing, you know, and every part of it was fantastic. And so basically, if you have a production in your area that, no matter what your pay is for that production, if you have a big production coming to your area, I think it's well worth your time to just become a production assistant. Become the guy who claps the clapboard. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Just go on set and learn. You know, befriend everyone. And that's the coolest part of the whole day. I mean, you never know who lives close to you, and you never know who you can network with. And you can learn from everyone on set, no matter what job they have. And, you know, it was a 17-hour long day, and it very easily could have been one of those things where you say, this is 17 hours, I'm tired, I'm cranky, we've been lifting cases and switching things around and getting hurt and banged up all day. But at the end of the day, it's really fun because you have this lightheartedness on set. We were in a funeral home all day, and so every couple minutes, one of the crew would come up with a joke about dead people or something like that. And, you know, yes, it's morbid and because you're in a funeral home, but at the same time, that's what makes this set fun to be around. And that's what makes the whole day go by fast. And at the end of the day, you don't even realize it's been a 17-hour long day.
Tune in Thursday, June 4th at 8 p.m. for Our Town Orgsburg on WVIA TV.
And then blow some bubbles.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
get your bubble thing loaded. Okay.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing for me going home was, wow, that 17 hours went by so fast, and I can't wait to do it again tomorrow. And that's what makes a job a career. And that's something that you can't put a price on. Making a job something more than a job, something more than punching in and punching out at the end of the day. So that's what makes this whole endeavor worthwhile, and that's what we're all after. So I hope in today's episode you guys learned at least something, and I hope you go out there and you go out there and become a part of a production company. Realize it's not a one-man crew. If you're doing this by yourself, you know, it's a lot harder. And realize even if you're donating your time or whatever happens in the production, you have to have a team behind you, and you have to collaborate every once in a while. You can make films on your own all the time, and there's nothing wrong with that, but every once in a while it's good to have a collaboration project such as this project where you get to learn from other people. So thanks for joining us here today, and see us back here next week for a brand new episode. We cannot wait to share more.